The rain was no longer just water. It was a physical weight, pressing them into the mud of the hillside. The paved alleys of the favela, with their tangle of wires and neon lights, were far below them now. Here, on the upper ridge known as the Green Limit, the city ended and the primal Atlantic forest began. Mateo dug his fingers into the slick red clay, pulling himself up a steep embankment. His boots, heavy with sludge, slipped on the wet roots exposed by the deluge. Behind him, Leo was a rhythmic sound of gasping breath and sliding gravel. The boy was operating on pure adrenaline. The shock of killing Sandro, or watching Mateo kill him, still short-circuiting his ability to feel fatigue. "Keep moving," Mateo whispered, though the wind snatched the words away before they traveled a meter. "Don't look down. Look at my heels." They were ascending toward the Niño da Águila, the eagle's nest. It was an old drug lookout point abandoned years ago when the police helicopters started using thermal imaging. It was a ruin of concrete and rebar, swallowed by vines, but it offered the only cover before the deep jungle took over completely. Every muscle in Mateo's body screamed in protest. The mechanics of his movement were automatic, military muscle memory overriding the exhaustion of a man who had smoked too many cheap cigarettes and carried too much guilt. He wasn't climbing for power anymore. He was climbing for air. Below them, the Rocinha favela glowed like a massive bioluminescent organism, but the pattern of the lights was changing. Mateo paused, bracing himself against the trunk of a jackfruit tree, and looked back. Through the sheets of rain, he saw the tactical floodlights of the 3rd Command sweeping the lower sectors. They were methodical, surgical. Unlike Cobra's chaotic rule, this invasion was terrifyingly organized. He saw the flash of a flare near the bakery, Silas's sector. It burned a bright magnesium red before fizzling out. A signal? An execution? Mateo pushed the thought away. Silas had chosen his ghosthood. Mateo had chosen the mud. "Leo," Mateo said, reaching back and grabbing the boy's wrist. Leo's skin was cold, clammy. "We are almost at the tree line. Once we pass the concrete pillar, we stop running and start evading. Do you understand the difference?" Leo nodded, his eyes white discs in the darkness. "Running leaves tracks. Evading leaves nothing." "Good." They crested the ridge 10 minutes later. The noise of the favela, the sporadic gunfire, the barking dogs, the shouts of the invading soldiers was muffled here, replaced by the roar of the wind thrashing the canopy. They stumbled into the shell of the eagle's nest. The roof was gone, but 3 walls remained, covered in ancient graffiti from the Red Command era, now faded under layers of moss. Mateo shoved Leo into the driest corner, kicking away a pile of rotting leaves. He collapsed opposite the boy, his back sliding down the rough concrete. He pulled the pistol from his waistband. It was wet, gritty. He ejected the magazine, wiped the rounds on his dry undershirt, and reloaded. The metallic click was the only man-made sound in the wild. "Are they coming up?" Leo asked. His teeth were chattering so hard the words sounded chopped. "Not tonight," Mateo replied, his voice raspy. "The 3rd Command are businessmen. They don't like getting their boots muddy unless there is profit in it. There is no profit up here, only snakes and ghosts." Mateo watched the boy. He was hugging his knees, shivering violently. Hypothermia was a silent killer, faster than a bullet if you ignored it. Mateo moved closer, unzipping his heavy mechanic's jumpsuit. "Come here," Mateo ordered. Leo hesitated, then scooted over. They huddled together against the graffiti-stained wall, sharing body heat. It was a moment of profound vulnerability for a man who had spent his life projecting invincibility. Mateo realized that for the first time in 10 years, he wasn't a soldier of a drug lord. He was just a man keeping a child alive. "My brother," Leo whispered into the darkness. "Do you think they found him?" Matteo looked out through the shattered window frame at the sprawling sea of lights below. He thought of the bodies they had stepped over, the amnesty lies, the brutal efficiency of the new regime. "Your brother is part of the favela now, Leo, like the bricks, like the wires." Matteo didn't lie to the boy. Lying was for peacetime. "But you are here, and because you are here, he exists. If you die, his memory dies. That is your mission now. Not revenge, memory." The rain began to slacken, turning into a cold mist. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by a dull, throbbing ache in Matteo's joints. He kept his eyes on the trail they had just climbed. He knew that eventually the third command would secure the perimeter. Eventually, they would send a tracker unit to flush out the stragglers. But tonight, the mountain belonged to them. Matteo closed his eyes for a second, listening to the jungle. The crickets were starting to chirp again, signaling that the predators had passed. He felt the weight of the pistol in his lap. It was heavy, but it was the only truth left in a world of shifting allegiances. "We are on our own," Matteo whispered to the distant statue of Christ the Redeemer. Floating above the clouds, illuminated and serene, its back turned to the favela. The statue looked at the wealthy districts, at the ocean, at the paradise. It never looked at the mud. "We are on our own," Matteo whispered as he saw the Savali afternoon. The dawn was hours away. When it came, it wouldn't bring rescue, it would bring visibility, and visibility was death. They had to move before the sun touched the peaks. They had to disappear into the Atlantic forest, to become something wilder, something harder than the city below could understand. The war for the favela was over. The war for survival had just begun.